Good morning, welcome to a morning update and outlook. Let's see what's going on this morning. Firstly, let's just check out the news events. There's nothing this morning, I can tell you that now. Canadian bank holiday today. Victoria Day then in Canada. So there we go, Monday 22nd. Tomorrow morning we've got a bit of flash data. This is quite important data. It goes through the whole day. We've got the European in the UK, then the US data coming out. Quite important data there. Wednesday we got Reserve Bank of Australia, New Zealand. Goodness, they won't forgive me for that. Reserve Bank of New Zealand there through the early morning, and then Bank of England Governor Bailey speaking there at on Wednesday afternoon. So talking at the Net Zero Summit, we'll see. I don't think that will do too much on that basis. Just looking core durable goods on Friday, so it's not a big day ahead with news for most countries. The New Zealand dollar would be watched carefully. They've been New Zealand central bank would be watched carefully. They've been increasingly steady increasing the rate steadily for a long time. In fact, if you go back, and I can't see one there that they didn't increase. In fact, they increased some quite savagely. So some big old moves through that. So they've been leading the way effectively, or pretty much leading the way. But looking like they're still going to increase further. So that might be a sign for some other countries. We'll see. Morning, Ritu. Morning, Ian. Welcome, Mitch. Morning. Right, okay, so that's the news this week. I will just check my other system because sometimes this thing misses out key speakers. We got a bundle of speakers today then, just as well I looked. This morning we've got 5 ECB speakers throughout the morning. Fed Bullard speaking this afternoon, 1:30, and then we got a whole raft of ECB and Fed speakers from 3:50. Basically the day is full of speakers. Now on this system it doesn't tell me where they're speaking or what they're speaking about, so it's just the fact that they're speaking. Just be aware of it. As I say, there's quite a raft of speakers there. Okay, coming out today, so if you do see something a bit unusual, that could be the reason. Right, looking at the markets in euro dollar, we'll start off looking from top down as ever. Now we're in this sort of downward trend pretty much, lower highs, lower lows. Question is now where to today then, or for are we going to see a continuation to the downside here, or are we going to see something a little bit different? Are we going to see more of our upside? Now the reason I ask that is on the lower time frames here we've got sort of higher lows coming through. It's just about managed to get 2 higher lows coming through. Untouched daily pivot at the moment. A run up to the R1 gives me a trade up to the R2 effectively this morning. That's what I'm really looking at. Break of the R1 into the R2. Prefer it to touch the R1, pull back and run through. Sometimes it will just go. So watch out for that. But otherwise, possibly a little buy off the daily pivot. We'll see what happens there. So there is a bit of there's still buy at the moment. Probably be a good buy, and it will roll straight over. If it does, well, I'm not in it. That's fine. And I'll look. I'd like the downside from the bigger time frames, of course, but there might still be opportunities from there. Anyway, pound dollar here. Obviously retraced, not quite to the extent the euro has in a sense. It's been, I mean, some of these moves here, the structure looking at this market, you're sort of bouncing up big bounces each time. How far they come against the last bounce is quite high. Sold off this morning at the moment, or selling off this morning. Maybe this is the signal that the euro will follow. But when you see these retracements quite so deep, sometimes it's a signal that the market's going to go the other way, or get more of a continuation. Now I had to look at this twice to see if it was the same market I was looking at. It's very similar to the euro. Okay, this high here hasn't broken the previous high like we've seen with the euro dollar, and it's sold off a little bit more. Now it has hit the pivot. It would be interesting to see if this does get a bit more of a bounce It's still on my pivotal line that I've drew. It seems like years ago now. It's probably a month, but anyway, it's still kicking around that sort of area and finding support resistance. Resistance isn't so great as the support sort of as an area. It's seeing a bit more support now. We could see more dollar strength. There's possible fundamental reason we could do or might do, but it's a tough whole game at the moment to work out what's going to happen. US dollar, yen. Well, the yen's been strengthening on Friday, but to a little way this morning, but it's still a bit of a mess. Again, looking at structure on this 4 hourly, we've got the higher lows in through here, but then we put this sort of lower high in. Now, break of the pivot, the weekly pivot there, would possibly point to some further downside. So again, I'm just getting that sort of build up looking through these markets. This arguably is an inverted euro or pound the way you look at it. In terms of the price action, it's come back to its daily pivot here. Maybe it's going to push off down towards the S1. We'll watch it this morning. So there's some scope in these to move. Almost counter short-term trend. Now the Aussie US dollar, seems like a year I've been talking about this, still hasn't got down to its absolute lows here of this pattern that it's in. It did actually nip me out of my I'd put a trailing stop on when the price was down here somewhere, trailed it down, but did get nipped out, perhaps a little bit too aggressive, but it literally, and I'd say it literally nipped it out. There you go, nipped out, closed it. Okay, it's profitable, but not to the extent I was looking for. Lower high coming through here on the short daily. Again, pound is showing that sort of same weakness as the pound is at the moment. So maybe that, as I say, that's a signal that the dollar's going to strengthen further. Don't really have a trade on this at the moment, so I'll leave that. US dollar CAD. So it's still consolidating where it is. It's been the one that sort of effectively moved the least and against the US dollar, and well, more consolidation. I'll leave that alone. It works across some of the other pairs though, normally, he says, quickly covering that. The New Zealand dollar is still in this channel as well, but it's looking like it's not a trade from where it sits at the moment. It's neither halfway up nor well, it is. It's halfway up and halfway down ish. Well, yeah, let's not even look at it. There's no point giving it time of day when it's sort of it's sitting halfway. Euro yen. This was looking like it was making a decent recovery into Friday, and then Friday it all went sort of all went wrong. I can't remember what time it was. It was 2 o'clock on Friday. There you go. Just checked on another chart. 2 o'clock on Friday when it rolled over. Having done so, it's probably put some divergence in. Let's just look at the lower time frame. Yeah, it's just sort of showing some divergence because it's rolled over a bit more, so a little bit softer there. On this time frame, it's not really. It's one of those halfway sort of moves. I quite like the pattern it's doing at the moment. If I saw another bar coming off of this, I'd like to be on the short side, more likely. But nothing too simple there. Euro pound started giving me some trades, and then it's gone choppy again. It consolidated and quite ugly this week or last week, so leave that alone for now. Euro Aussie is not particularly any different to that actually. Euro CAD did give me some moves, but last week or Friday it just chipped me out on the trade. Did look like it was going to continue away on the downside here, never really moved too much, and pushed through the other way altogether in the end. Yeah, he's put a high low in now, so it's changed the structure a bit, but a little bit iffy where it's sitting at the moment, so no absolute sort of setup on that or anything I really want to be looking at. Okay, that's pretty much the major pairs, major crosses. We'll look at the pound yen because I know a lot of people like the pound yen. So pound yen, Well, it's sitting into its quarterly R2 there, and it's double topped, real sort of W sort of pattern which we normally see at the bottoms, but anyway, it's riding its way back. It's a question really, I suppose, can it break the weekly pivot here? Is it going to find support and bounce? It's consolidated in the nearer term here, and quite ugly. Looking at this pattern, it almost looks like it, well, dare I say, head and shoulders. Don't shoot the messenger, just saying. But it does look quite weakish. You'll see how this follows through this morning. That could roll over. It's just about nabbed its pivot earlier, well, last night actually, on the crossover, but does look a bit on the softer side. But again, it may be worth waiting, the same as I'm looking at the euro yen and seeing if it will roll back for me. Right, that will do for now on the currency pairs. I'll look some more in the room. Just a reminder, you can get a bit of room access from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week. There's a link underneath the YouTube video for those that are interested. Right, equity markets. Only really looking at the bigger picture here. So the CSI 300 doing a bit of reversal there. It's still in a bearish state to me, so not looking particularly wonderful. Yes, it's had a day, but it's had its day. However, look at this Nikkei go. It's continuing and continuing. I remain bullish on it, but as I said before, if you're trying to be a buyer on this overall, maybe intraday you can get some opportunities, but it's a difficult old one to you could just be buying into a top the way it's moved up here. I talked about island reversals and everything else, these sort of little gaps that it's leaving behind, but it's continued to push, and just let it go its way. Don't resist it. Now, Nifty 50, it's almost said 50 moving average. The Nifty 50, this is still, as I said last week, it's still got some bullishness about it, and it turned it in a reasonable day on Friday there, just putting us at a little hammer there. Pushed up so far this morning, still in a bullish state. It was just waiting for it to do something. US, or actually let's just have a quickie look at it, because it's still trying to do something here. The Aussie 200 still in this horrible consolidation. There you go. Deterred to have a quick look, but Mitch is in our room so this morning, so I'm just being inclusive. S&P 500s, where we've taken out the highs here. It's just started to move out last week of this sort of horrible consolidation phase, and it's a little bit in a dither, to say the least. Last week it ran into its R3 actually that it got up to, and it failed at the R3, but there's nothing saying it won't push up further. The only thing is that when you start looking at this time frame here, you see how it's consolidating and running around the highs there. It's pulled away from there. Now it's consolidating away from the lows. Highs, beg pardon. This could be a signal that it's going to roll over a little bit further, maybe just down to its daily S1, maybe just down to the lows there, but it's a softer signal. When it's not like a bull flag when you've seen it run down here. It's quite the contrary. Often we see a rollover, but there you go. That's S&Ps. The Dow, similar situation on the shorter time frames here. Hell of a mess. It's really followed the S&Ps largely. Nasdaq's the one that's not. It's the golden child at the moment. It's still got some scope here. Bull flaggy looking on the 4 hourly. It certainly doesn't look the same, quite the same. It looks like it's trying to push up there. Maybe it's got some more fuel in the tank yet. Coming closer then with the DAX. The DAX pushed through 1600 last week. It's hanging in there and pushing up again by the looks of it today. It's getting a bit messier on the shorter time frames here. See how it's consolidating away. Maybe we'll see it pull off a little bit this morning. We're seeing the other markets looking weak. The euro's looking a bit on the weaker side now as I'm talking, so a bit of a softer market there for a moment, but watch out, that could still carry on, and don't lose sight of the bigger picture here. Basically the FTSE, well, bigger picture there's consolidation, nothing much to add. Didn't look at gold this morning. Sorry, Ritu. I normally do it before I look at the equity markets, out of routine. So gold, well, one day up last week on Friday. Now we saw this on Friday, the sort of recovery across, and for some markets it's, and I suppose if you come down the lower time frames here, you'll see it's put a higher low in, so it's showing the cracks. It's back to its daily pivot at the moment. It's really post 8 o'clock to see what it does. Maybe hang on even a little bit longer, but it is a sort of a flaggy pattern in what we're running here. If you look at it from a higher time frame, it's probably shown a consolidation away from the low, and in which case I'd expect it to be potentially pushing up anyway. So yeah, possible change around there. And crude, just I'm totally inclusive this morning for John. Okay, still consolidating on dailies, isn't it? It really is struggling a little bit here. I've seen cases for both further upside and further downside sort of thrown out there by the likes of what's it called, oil.com, I think it is. I look at quite a bit, but I've closed it. It's something like that. Anyway, the cases are both sides for it at the moment. The contracts for, and one thing I would say, the UK oil, the contracts there, I mean it's quite similar in terms of what we're looking at, but UK oil, as it's known, or Brent crude, is the price of a number of different wells, drilling operations. But believe it or not, Western Texas is going to be included in that, so it'll have quite a play on the. Basically we'll be looking at one market effectively, and well, the markets are very correlated, tightly correlated anyway, so it won't make a great deal of difference from that point of view. Okay, that's it for me. I hope you have a great day, and I'll catch you on Monday. Take care. Bye for now. Remember, there's a link below if you want to join me on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Bye for now.